this to let us run Carnival for you, because we know Carnival. We know how to put on Carnival. I mean, we put on a successful Carnival just last Carnival. This year, you know, we made a net profit of minus 30 million. So we know Carnival. And the THA rightfully said thanks but no thanks, because at the end of the day, it is their event, and it might help if you start off with someone that, I don't know, maybe knows the island first. What do you think?
In relation to Tobago Carnival, a couple of things. First of all, from the standpoint of the Tobago House of Assembly, I don't know why it's taken them so long to release the details of the events. It's about just 2.5 months away from the expected time that Carnival celebrations in Tobago will commence. And we still aren't very much aware as to what is going on. We have the very basic details of the celebrations that will be starting, if I'm not mistaken, from the Thursday. But on the THS part, this is looking very, very bad. This is looking poor in terms of planning, because you cannot give stakeholders just 2 months' notice. You know, with respect to Taste of Carnival, it was similar.
And we saw what happened. So for, on the flip side, to see the NCC now coming and stating, well, we know how to run Carnival, I don't have any doubt that Tobago, Trinidad's Carnival, because we're now separating it, Trinidad's Carnival is one of the grandest and greatest. It's a celebration known throughout the entire world, and people love to come to Trinidad to celebrate Carnival. But I'll be very honest with you. I did listen to an interview with the chairman of the NCC, Mr. Winston Gypsy Peters, on another television station yesterday morning. Early yesterday morning, actually. It was a television station in the Sister Isle. And he was asked a question directly by the host of the show. Should the THA come to the NCC for assistance in planning the Carnival celebrations as well as executing, will you be willing to help? His response immediately told me that, listen, THA needs to actually stay away from the NCC. His response was, listen, we as the NCC are governed by a specific act that falls in line under a certain minister. Once that minister gives us the instructions to do so for whatever plans, we will go ahead with it. Right? And immediately... Yeah, well, that already means...
Yeah, immediately that was a turn-off for me. Immediately, I'm like, well, first of all, yes, there is an act that governs state boards, state entities, but there is absolutely no need for the NCC to get permission from the line minister if the THA is coming to work with you. The NCC
because it's not the ministry's budget, it's the THA's budget.
Exactly. Furthermore, the NCC should be an independent body that, yes, whilst it receives funds from that line ministry and while it should report to the minister, it should still carry out its operations.
The one thing that they might need from the minister is permission for NCC employees to go and engage in a project outside of the standard Carnival activities on behalf of the THA.
Why?
Just because somebody's still paying those employees salaries.
You remember, even though we're having 2 separate carnivals, it is the national carnival.
I know, but there would probably be nothing in the NCC's rules, regulations, whatever responsibilities, mandate, vision, mission, etc. on this extra carnival activity, right? So I'm not saying that they need like a whole set of oversight and new legislation or something like that, but at the end of the day, just to clear it, because the salaries are coming from central government, unless, of course, the salaries, the cost of the salaries of whoever from the NCC works for the THA will come from the THA's budget, right? Then fine, but they're not technically employed by the THA, so you just have to, that's just a basic principle of employment chain of command thing.
But then let's look at it from the other example, because I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying that you're necessarily wrong. But what now if the THA becomes a client of the NCC? Does the NCC then need permission? If the THA...
If the NCC has the capacity to undertake such contracts, then no. I'm just not sure if even that also would have to be somewhere within their business structure of what is allowed or what is not allowed.
So overall, to answer your question, Sean, I think that the THA should go ahead with planning their own carnival, as we've seen. I don't think they necessarily need the help of the NCC, but the 2 key things thus far, one, that trip to Grenada, not necessary and a waste of money. 2, the situation with respect to the planning and the dates. We still have no information, and it is looking bad on the part of the THA.
The key is the successful part of Carnival, the popular part of Carnival, the part that actually makes sense with regards to achieving things, really and truly, is mostly the private ventures of Carnival. Because it's not as though Tobago is trying to build up the traditions of Carnival in Tobago, right? Because again, those traditions are back Carnival Monday and Tuesday, before Ash Wednesday, etc., etc. It's not about the traditions of Carnival per se, as to have a tourism event, as to have a marketing event, as to have a commercial event. And on top of that, the traditional events are languishing in agony, in a purgatory of human making, right? But the private events, the private endeavors, the bands, the fetes, the promoters, etc., that's what I think, if at the end of the day, to me, it seems as though it was a business decision by the THA to try to generate more business for the island of Tobago, well then that's the most important thing. So you're right, you need to give the stakeholders, those private stakeholders, everything that they need in time to get their events going. The THA itself, with regards to what it might actually directly throw, that doesn't have to be too elaborate.
You see, the thing is, as you mentioned, private stakeholders are the ones that really pump money into the island and make the carnival a true success.
Right.
Because THA does not want to essentially, copy what TNT did and end up making a $13.4 million loss. You don't want to do that. Because then you're basically stating we're having our own carnival.
It defeats the purpose.
Right.
You're doing this to generate business, not to lose money.
Exactly. So if it is that you have private stakeholders that are coming on board, willing to come on board, since it was announced,
yes,
you know that weeks, even months leading up to the event.
The irony is it should be even simpler to plan in some respects, but I guess you have to give them a little bit of leeway because it is the first time, and maybe they jumped the gun to try to have it this year instead of saying we will prepare to have it next year.
I am not saying in any sense that we shouldn't give them leeway because it's the first time. I'm just stating that you've mentioned it. It doesn't take a lot of sense to understand that it is the private stakeholders. As we see in TNT months leading up to the carnival. Remember, Tobago is a smaller island. You might not see to the extent events taking place in Tobago that we see in Trinidad. But we will see events on weekends. They will throw fetes on weekends leading up to the carnival events. Trinidadians would go across for the weekend.
Fetes start from July, August.
Exactly. Trinidadians will go across. Trinidadians will spend their money and go across just to go to fete.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. The THA is looking bad. But they're not just that they're looking bad, they're losing out. And at this point, you could make the argument that they're essentially doing the same thing that we as in Trinidad did for our carnival, and I just hope it doesn't backfire.
I think it's a little bit more complex because at the end of the day, fetes in Trinidad are not going to stop, and this is feting season in Trinidad. But I mean, what was going to be a little bit of a preamble before the main topic has taken up a significant chunk of time. The main topic actually that I want to get into, and this, I don't know to what extent this is true. It's one news report. It's important enough that I think it's something that we can't ignore, and that is basically that an advocacy group or NGO has more or less looked and done private investigations of their own and have discovered online child pornography in TNT. Basically the implications from the report is that it's multiple online groups that share pictures of minors, but also actively, not just share social media pictures with minors, that's bad enough, right? But also actively looks for child pornography and even, it was mentioned, revenge porn among minors. And it listed out a broad category of members of these groups: doctors, police officers, and engineers. And basically, the reason why they exist is because the laws and the law enforcement of what few laws that might cover this area of cybercrime. And, well, cybercrime, I believe, primarily, but also pornography crime as well. Both the laws and the enforcement of them are so weak that basically the alleged perpetrators, they don't fear any sort of police investigation or legal prosecution.
Listen, first of all, I'm not going to act as though this is news. I'm not going to act as though I'm utterly in shock.
Well, the fact that it exists is not news.
Right?
The size or the implied size and scale of it, I think, is a bit shocking to me.
I'm not even going to act surprised in relation to that. You have to understand how society works. First of all, the NGO was not named in the article. Right, so the article, though might be, revealing some information to a certain extent, does not speak much, doesn't have a lot of credibility to the extent that I have evidence to suggest,
yes. Unfortunately, yes.
But nevertheless, it is something that is once more being raised, and it is extremely important. This is not news. This is something that we should have been tackling years and years ago. Years and years ago. You see, you mentioned no fear of prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
How it works in Trinidad, a long time ago it used to be who you know. Now it is who know you. And at the end of the day, once you start passing the buck, everybody in TNT knows you. So these individuals have no fear of prosecution because according to this particular article, this group is large, over 800 members within the group. It includes lawyers, doctors, engineers, and the part that is not entirely surprising is the police as well,
yeah.
Right? And that is where people feel as though that we're immune. Because we have police officers involved in this as well, this is not going to happen. We're not going to be prosecuted. Children in TNT are extremely vulnerable. They always have been. They always have been. But on the other side of it, whilst we haven't done absolutely anything to make any inroads into eliminating this criminal activity, we have done nothing. The child protection units exist. The cybercrime units exist. What have they done? What has successive ministries of national security done?
As much as those units exist, I don't know if we have enough in the laws on the books to actually investigate, because that's what the article alleges. It alleges that the opinion of the people involved is that the police can't really investigate or effectively do anything about this, right? And we generally, it's known, those who know that our laws governing the internet are way behind, right? Think about it. We now got, what, last year or this year, Digital Transformation Ministry, at a stage where, at this point, for you to actually say we're going to have its own independent ministry to try to get us to start digital transformation, that is an admittance of how behind we are. That should be something that every ministry should have started a decade or two ago. So
my other argument in relation to this is, I'm trying to look at this from all angles and all sides, all perspectives. I think if you have an individual that is willing to share photos of themselves, right, I think also that should be an offense. Because,
of themselves?
Yes. Because one will make the argument, listen, it's their body. They can do that. They have their own mind and whatnot.
But generally speaking, are you talking about adults or minors?
I'm talking about both. In the case of adults, it's a bit more difficult. In the case of minors, it's complicated as well, because you prosecute them to certain degrees of the law.
But also, to what extent can a minor have the capacity to make that decision for themselves and then be responsible for that decision for themselves?
Exactly. So prosecution for a minor is always a difficult debate, right? And more so, this is not the program for it. I think this is more for a program like Strictly Legal to discuss.
But outside, the implications of the article is that they're looking for things that are outside of the control of the individual. So one of the examples given was, two young people are in love, or they think they're in love, and then one sends nudes or suggestive photos to the other. And then what happens if they break up? Because most young couples don't stay together forever. Some do, but most don't. That's why you don't send nudes as a teenager. And then now, the other person who might have been the cause of the breakup, maybe cheated, maybe did something or the other. He has nudes of a young lady, or potentially a young man.
But Sean, you're describing to me...
And then that gets leaked out because revenge porn. That's the whole point of revenge porn.
You are describing to me sexual grooming.
No, two young people.
Right? Well, two young people, again, always
I believe grooming would be
right?
an
grooming
adult
would
and
be
a
more
minor.
of an adult, right?
So, but the point is, the other person has now, you've given him photos of yourself. And those photos...
Willingly,
you've given him willingly. You're not necessarily giving him permission to spread it, but that's the whole point of revenge porn. Once it's out on the internet, it's hard to take back, especially because of situations like this, because it will be shared and it will spread. So you could try to delete the copy here, delete the copy there, but there will always be a copy going through that cycle of share. It's kind of like a coronavirus that never ends almost. Because once it reaches another group or another person who then has it and who could share it again and again and again. And then on top of that, there are ways on the internet, I don't necessarily understand all of them, that could dig up past information or stuff that might have been deleted. There are apparently ways. Once it's on the internet, that's why there is the saying, it's never truly able to be deleted.
I think, again, this is not an entirely surprising story. It's very unfortunate that this is continuing and this continues to happen across TNT. But we have a national security apparatus. We have a ministry of...
How much more are we going to ask the police to prioritize?
Are we really asking the police to prioritize if there are specific units that should be charged with this?
Well, because the thing is, the gender-based violence unit also has to worry about, look, just this week alone, you know, an old man now killed his old wife and injured his son, right, before he himself died. So you can't, you don't know with regards to just the actual physical violence now that we are the members of the public, not all, but are expecting the police to somehow magically prevent all of these things, despite the fact that what happens behind closed doors is one of the hardest things to detect.
It's very difficult to prevent all these things. We totally understand that, but start making some inroads. For example, this article, again, very difficult in terms of credibility, right? Anonymous tips or revelations of information from an NGO that wasn't named. I wonder what the police response is going to be towards this.
The media house in question,
remember how
reported, they contacted the police gave no comment. If I was the police, I would at least be prepared to say why we have not been able
And you
to
do
make
remember
any
half the
inroads
time
on
when
this.
victims feel helpless, they do turn to social media to reveal a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but more importantly, when victims feel helpless, they lose faith in the TTPS and they stop reporting.
which I have a story to share with you about the TTPS.
Anyway,
very
we are over
shortly.
time.
But yes, we are over time. I'll share that story with you off air. But for now, folks, let's take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, we'll continue the conversations this morning because a lot transpired in Tobago yesterday. And, well, there's an incident that took place in Grenada involving Trinis. We'll be right back after this.
Bills here, got phone bill, light bill, and a plane ticket. Where this ticket come from? Who flying here? And look, the roof leaking now?
It sounds like you need a loan from Eastern Credit Union during the Dobita promotion.
But who is you?
A lot of questions you're asking. You can get a loan for mortgage, home equity, debt consolidation, and a Georgie bundle. You know it's a Georgie bundle? Like everything in one. You can also get a chance to win up to $30,000 in prizes.
But there's my robe.
Focus, Daryl. He's sounding like you know what he's talking about. Eastern Credit Union have us covered. I done talk.
And this promotion running until August 30th. You need to go down there right now.
But why you have my toothbrush?
You still asking a lot of questions. We will be here when you come back. Go down there, let me fix the roof. And they can probably get a new bed. Their bed doesn't making a lot of noise. So go down the road, Eastern Credit Union.
But how you know about my bed?
Don't beat up, Darrell. Hurry up, hurry up. Don't beat up. We will be here.
So, tell me more about this Dobita promotion.
Well,
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Well, what an incredible backdrop. The whole stadium roaring him on. The gold's in the bag. And that's another throw over 90. That is ridiculous.
You know, it's sad, Sean. It's extremely sad that, you know, how do I put it? Down here, we are many individuals, or many members of society. Bad behavior has become something, I suppose, that we've grown accustomed to, a certain level of ignorance. And I'm not saying that we accept it. I'm just thinking that we try to ignore it. Now that an incident like this has transpired, and the bad attitude and behavior of Trinis once more has reflected on a different nation and a different individual from a different nation. One of our CARICOM brothers. This
and a close neighbor
is
not just another country.
I am so full of anger, and I know people are going to say, well, Keaton, how could you say that? You don't know the details as yet. You know, details are still sketchy. Maybe
From what I understand,
he said and did something wrong. According to these reports, one voice note circulating suggested that a lady was saying that he was asked to leave the boat because it was going to take off for another cruise, another party. He refused to do so, and then that happened.
Okay, so
that is one voice note circulating.
Here's what I understand it from our colleague Andre Batiste, the face of sports himself. This is what he told me yesterday, right? So now, granted, obviously he was not there. This is the messages he's been getting. So, you know, it's not as though we know this to be 100% the truth. But apparently, he was on the boat for the first sailing. It was coming back to offload, take on new passengers for a second event, and the promoters basically called him back or called him to stay of, I believe, the second event. This is to say the people, the locals who were throwing the event, not the boat operators themselves. So, of course, now he is not going to turn down the invitation, and rightfully so. He's celebrating his success. And unfortunately, he didn't have a band because obviously he did not buy one for the second sailing. And apparently the crew, they were technically doing their job. It's just how they did their job is where I have a disagreement for. Because if this was, to me, and the irony, of course, is the easiest analogy is, or analog would be when Keshawn Walcott got his gold medal for his first gold medal in the Olympics, right? Because every Trinidadian knew who he was after that gold medal. So if it was somebody like that, where nationally you're known, right, in Trinidad, I'm very certain those guys would not have responded to Keshawn Walcott trying to stay on a boat the way they did to the Grenadian javelin throw.
You see how those individuals were walked off by the Royal Grenada Police Force afterwards? By no means. Lock them up in Grenada. I do not feel sorry for them if they are locked up in Grenada, if they are prosecuted. I do not feel sorry for them at all. The management of the harbour master, the boat involved, which by the way is owned by Adrian School, if that name sounds familiar. But we're leaving Adrian out of this because
I have no blame to throw on ownership.
Out of this.
This is the guys in the moment.
Right. But regardless, I do not care if they are prosecuted in Grenada and if they're locked up in Grenada. That doesn't bother me. Do that. I support that. Because that level of nonsense, you cannot go to any nation
that's a good point.
And carry that out at all.
That's a good point. So you have to bear the consequences. You're in a foreign country. Yes, it's a CARICOM neighbor. It's still a foreign country.
Don't think it's because my boat, I could do what I want in
so you have to be on your best behavior. Because if you do a crime in America, China, the UK, wherever, Australia,
good luck if
Japan,
you commit any of those crimes in any of those countries.
Right?
Good luck.
No one is going to cry tears for you. So why resort to that level of violence? That's what I don't understand. You're in a foreign country. That's a foreign national. You don't know the people. You don't know who Mr. Peters is, right? Don't just act like you're big and bad because this is your boat. So, and the thing is, this is what makes me upset. It makes TNT look bad, right? At a time when we already have a reputation as being the richer, bigger nation, the larger population, more resources, etc., right? Bigger businesses, etc., throwing our weight around all over the Caribbean, blah, 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 blah. Things like this really and truly do not help with trying to achieve any sort of CARICOM or Caribbean unity.
Okay, but Sean, the two things. First of all, the management of the harbour master has said they're working to find an amicable resolution. You do that to prevent such an incident from taking place. You don't try to find an amicable resolution after an incident of this nature takes place. If I was the management, yes, that is your crew, those are your employees, but you don't need them on your boat anymore. You don't need them to service your operations anymore. If I was you, find new crew members.
That is too much of a risk.
Amicable resolution, let the Grenada Police Service deal with it.
What happens
Let the justice system in Grenada deal with it.
What happens now if a foreign VIP comes to Trinidad and you have a similar altercation like that? You might be justified, yes. He might be technically not allowed on the boat, except maybe the party organizers invited him anyway and he doesn't have a band. Same scenario
that
I outlined.
Let me just ask you.
And we got an international incident now.
Let me just ask you very quickly. You were stating that it makes Trinidad look bad.
Sorry, an international incident that will make international headlines in foreign press, European press, American press, etc.
It
said makes Trinidad look bad to Grenada.
Right, and because Trinidad has this reputation of being the wealthier nation and this and that.
The bigger nation.
All right, okay, you made your point. My question to you based off of that point is simple. Did we ever have a good reputation in the Caribbean, regardless of the wealth that TNT has? Did we ever have a good reputation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Not based off what I've heard.
I don't know. Generally speaking, I would not assume so.
Yeah, not based on what I heard. Trinidad probably was seen as the wealthy nation, but the Trinidadians, the Trinis, have a good reputation.
There's a reason.
In the Caribbean.
There is a reason why Trinidadians don't necessarily even have, when it comes to being guests, have a good reputation in Tobago.
I was just about to say that. Trinis alone don't have a good reputation in Tobago, let alone the rest of the Caribbean.
It's not all justified, and innocent people get caught in the flack, but at the end of the day, Peter unfortunately pays for Paul. They are Pauls. There are too many Pauls. Honestly, there's 6 Pauls in a Grenadian prison right now assisting in their investigation.
I would totally understand if it is you apprehended the man, right? And there was you find an amicable solution before doing that. Amicable solution. Don't bring them back to Trinidad. We don't want them. Grenada, lock them up in your prison, throw away the key.
Keita, no, we have to. The crime is not that severe that Grenada could keep them locked up forever. We can't.
Wasn't there also an incident a couple months ago in Grenada with respect to Trinis involved in a bank robbery? Oh boy, this is...
It's not looking good. It's not looking good.
Not at all. It doesn't add to the reputation that we have around the Caribbean.
For Trinidadian businessmen, and this is why Mr. Schoon should reconsider, well, if he's considering to keeping those 6, businessmen in TNT now look bad in Grenada.
Well, I can't comment to that extent. I don't know.
So, I mean, but the problem is, and we see this in businesses here in Trinidad, and it'll probably be the same thing there. How many boats do we have? How many banks do we have? How many conglomerates do we have that produce certain goods and services? There's limited options, so usually they get away with doing what they want. In this case, though, I don't know.
Very quickly, as we conclude on this particular thing, and you can share your thoughts and opinions with us later, but when you mentioned the reputation Trinis have in Tobago, yes, Trinidadians have a reputation in Tobago. It's not good at all. It's not good at all. And you're right. Sometimes it's unjustified.
Yes.
But
yes, and a lot of innocent Trinis do get flack, but unnecessarily, who are good patrons.
Many a times I've gone to Tobago, and I've seen the way Trinis not only treat Tobago. I'm talking about in the back of a van, drinking, throwing a beer bottle out of the road onto the grass, disrespecting it, because that's known down here, right? Up there, you go across, you're doing that. The way that they speak to some of Tobagonians, the way that they act, the way that they talk. And you see, you know what's the sad part, Sean? People don't like to mention this or talk about this. People say we shouldn't be creating this harmony where one nation, one people. I understand that.
Not talking about it.
Exactly. Until we address those issues, there will always be a split.
Here's something most people don't know. Most people probably don't know. Let me put it this way, because I didn't even necessarily know. Hotels in Trinidad cost more than hotels in Tobago. Trinis will pay more to stay in a hotel in Trinidad and be more polite than when they go to Tobago. Some Trinis.
You think Trinis could go to Hilton and act like that? No. They can't. You think they'll go to Hyatt and act like that?
No. You don't even need to go there to have to pay more, you know. I'm talking about the Holiday Inn by Piarco costs more than most hotels in Tobago. I'm pretty sure that they won't be able to act like that there.
Anyway, listen, before we get too caught up in this topic,
that's a whole other topic.
That's a big topic. We're going to cross our sister aisle very shortly. So we're going to take a break here on the program now. When we return, we'll get into that conversation as to what transpired yesterday. Stay tuned to the program.
Welcome to the American University of Barbados School of Medicine. We offer 2 comprehensive MD programs, 5.5-year program for high school finishers, and 4-year program for college graduates.
The American University of Barbados has been accredited with the Barbados Accreditation Council, BAC, and has been accredited
by CAMHP.
As the medical school has affiliate hospitals at Baltimore and Chicago in the USA and the Caribbean islands.
Don't miss us in TNT in Tobago, Mount Irving Bay Resort, August 12th and 13th. In Trinidad, Trade Winds Hotel San Fernando, August 14th and 15th. And Cape Hoc Hotel, Maraval, August 16th and 17th.
set of bills here, that phone bill, light bill, and a plane ticket. Where does ticket come from? Who flying here? And look, the roof leaking now.
It sounds like you need a loan from Eastern Credit Union during the Dobita promotion.
But who is you?
A lot of questions you're asking. You can get a loan for mortgage, home equity, debt consolidation, and a Georgie bundle. You know it's a Georgie bundle? Like everything in one. You can also get a chance to win up to $30,000 in prizes.
But there's my robe.
Focus, Daryl. He sounding like you know what he's talking about. Eastern Credit Union have us covered. I done talk.
And this promotion running until August 30th. You need to go down there right now.
But why you have my toothbrush?
You still asking another question. We will be here when you come back. Go down there, let me fix the roof. And they can probably get a new bed. Their bed doesn't making a lot of noise. So go down the road, Eastern Credit Union.
But how you know about my bed?
Don't beat up, Darrell. Hurry up, hurry up. Don't beat up. We will be here.
So, tell me more about this Dobita promotion.
Well,
the issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Today we have with us a special guest. He's an NHS physician.
In the United Kingdom, where 70% of the population is fully vaccinated, we've sort of had a chance to experience what normal life is like all over again. If you can trust the medical fraternity to treat you once you have COVID and you come into the hospital and you trust whatever medication we're giving you at that point, why don't you trust us when we're telling you to take the vaccine?
Healing Queens is a dance company which we do heels dancing, which is a fusion between jazz technique and burlesque styles.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And now, of course, as we said, we will be delving into what happened recently on the Sister Isle, and that is with regard to the airport expansion project. It is, of course, known that there have been residents dwelling in the areas that were part of the planned expansion, and those houses, unfortunately, now are caught up in the proceedings with its residents, well, potentially being evicted as of yesterday. An exercise happened. It was published in the media. Police were involved, and an attempt was made to evict some residents from their home. To give us an up-to-the-minute account of what's going on, as well as an explanation of much of this issue, we have with us the chairwoman of the peace negotiation movement that has been involved with this specific situation for quite some time, for the last couple of years at the very least. We have with us Ms. Rhonda Hackett from Tobago. Good morning, Ms. Hackett. Welcome to Talking Point.
Good morning, Ms. Hackett.
Good morning. Good morning to your listening audience, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. and to share.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Hackett, once again. So, of course, first of all, I just want to be clear. I've seen so many articles with regards to what happened yesterday. Where are we? Were the residents evicted? I believe it was one house specifically that was targeted in this exercise. Were more houses involved? And will the exercise continue, or has it been postponed as of right now?
Okay, so as it is right now, it was one family. And well, you know, in the Tobago setting, based on how we reside, sometimes there is more than one household and more than one house within that particular home or homestead. So there were two houses, and there was the extended family setting, and so there was the attempt to have eviction done of these two households. As it is right now, this process was intercepted, and the process is still ongoing in the court. So in terms of that type of detail, because it is before the court, there's only so much can be said. However, it was quite surprising that the attempt to evict the resident was made, because this matter is or was before that attempt before the court. And so an eviction notice was issued on July 6th with a 30-day indication for persons to evacuate their premises. And as such, we would have sought legal advice and would have taken legal action. And so with the various entities involved, the matter is currently before the court.
Well, Ms. Hackett, I don't know if you can clarify for me. I'm receiving conflicting information that, first of all, it is generally understood that the residents have no problem with the expansion and that they were actually willing to move. The part that is rather conflicting, and I hope you can clarify this, is that on one hand, I'm hearing that negotiations were completed and an agreement was in place. On the other hand, I'm hearing that is not the case, although it was stated that a house for the family to relocate to was actually provided. If that is the case, exactly what transpired yesterday? You said that they received legal advice. Legal advice exactly for what?
All right, so you have asked several questions.
Yes, several.
Right, so one, you have indicated that persons are or residents have been in agreement with the airport project and are willing to relocate. That is correct. From the very inception of this project, though painful, it is to leave one's place of abode and to have to be uprooted and relocated. We would have come to the position that this project is one for the greater development of Tobago, and have decided, given this sacrifice, we are willing to move. However, we would, expect that the necessary provisions would be in place for persons to relocate. And so I can give reference to the airport in Trinidad, the Piaco International Airport. When persons were to be relocated from this location, Orapoon's garden was rebuilt, persons were relocated, and then the lands were acquired. And there are also other examples that I could give reference to. And so it means that precedence was set. We had a model to which we could have looked at, and there are others. And so our simple request was that the needed infrastructure be put in place so that persons can resettle, and also that persons be compensated adequately, that this smooth transition can take place. The unfortunate reality is that one, from the very inception of this land acquisition, when the government first came to the resident, there was no compensation in place. We were told how much money was already aside for the construction of the terminal and its related works. However, when we beg the question, what funds have been allocated allocated for compensation of residents. There was none, not even a ballpark figure. And then this general attitude in terms of how the compensation of residents and the necessary provision that should be in place, it remains void and continue to be lacking. And so to indicate that a place was constructed and persons refused, there were four, or I shouldn't say were, there are 4 dwelling places that were constructed by the THA. To whom they belong, that information was not privileged to the residents. We inquired. There were rumors of who they should belong to, but those persons to whom they indicated the properties were for already had their own alternative homes. So the current individuals who are here and remain, those dwelling places or units were not constructed for these individuals. No such conversation or arrangement were made. And then there is a gross inequity that currently exists in terms of the negotiation process and the relocation process. And I will explain further. The operation of NITCO and the THA has been detached. You will go through a negotiation process with NITCO to be granted your compensation, which might I indicate at this point is grossly inadequate because it is usually slashing less than half of one's valuation. Then that sum of money would be given to you to then purchase property for your relocation. When you go now to the THA, whom they had indicated will cater for the relocation element, the sum of money that you are given cannot afford the property that you are expected to purchase. If you were privileged to hear the Chief Secretary's remarks regarding yesterday's incident, you would have heard him quoted the sum of money that was proposed to the family that was being evicted, $400,000. And then you spoke of dwelling that were constructed. The price that was quoted for to purchase these property was 1.2 million. Are you seeing the inequity in what is being given for settlement of negotiation and what is being offered for purchase of one's property? And might I also add, the lands that were supposed to be prepared with proper infrastructure and adequately subdivided, these preparations are not in place. The lands are not ready. Lighting or electricity, water, sewer system, etc., they are not in place. So then persons are being evicted to go where? And then you saw the sum of money that they were offering those individuals. What type of house can be constructed with $400,000 given the cost of building material, etc.?
Yes. Ms. Hackett, I do have to ask, because it does seem as though there were others who successfully relocated previously, much previously. I know one business establishment. I'm not sure if he relocated due to the airport or if he relocated potentially on his own in advance. Were they those, whether it's a business or if it was a private residence, who were able to get a reasonable deal for themselves to move? Or has it all been on an individual basis on their own accord?
Now, each person is expected to go into the negotiation on their own accord to settle negotiation. So if the property that you own is a business and it is through a partnership, then the business owners together will go to the negotiating table. For respective families, etc., then they would have to face the negotiation process individually. Quite naturally, if they see the need to, they can also go with their supporting counterpart, let's say like an attorney. They definitely will need to have their valuer there and so on. So they could also have those supporting individuals in the negotiation process.
But of
However,
course, those people would have to be paid out of pocket by the residents, by the private citizen, I assume.
The only person, based on what I saw documentation, has indicated the only person that will be paid by the government will be your valuer.
Right, okay.
Ms. Hackett, we have about a minute left. If you can just, because again, I have a better understanding now. The very final thing to add to this puzzle is where NIDCO lies in all of this, the communication between NIDCO and the residents. What has that been like over the last few months? The notice was given on July 6th, if I'm not mistaken, 30 days. What has the communication been like between yourselves, the residents, and NIDCO?
All right, so you have indicated over the last few months. I would like to extend it over the last few years. I don't think that NIDCO has been as cordial as they need to be in their communication with the residents and this negotiation process. It has been a rough journey from the very inception with their interaction with us. I think they just basically seek to operate by the letter of the law, and there's no spirit of the law. A person's well-being and interests is not seen of any significant importance, and the process of acquiring the land to have an airport terminal is of paramount importance, and it seems by any means necessary. But I do believe that the spirit of the law should be exercised. Indicates that persons have right to property, and while we do know that the government of the day, the state, owns all lands and do have the power to acquire land for a state purpose, this should be done in a humane way. We do know that the Land Acquisition Act is one that is archaic. It is one in which it doesn't favor human rights and a smooth transition, but the government of the day should instead put policies in place to ensure that a smooth transition truly can take place. And as opposed to just say publicly that this is done, they should truly honor their words. What you saw transpired yesterday has been an ongoing undercurrent. What I would use metaphorically, this is just the volcano erupting from the different quakes that have been taking place all along, and it has been a rough journey. We have not had the cooperation of NIDCO. We have sought to reach out to them in the past, and as opposed to extend the next hand out to reach and communicate with us, they would instead just put information out in the media and in the airway as their means of communication. And I think better needs to be done if we really should have a cordial relationship and a smooth transition. Then NIDCO needs to meet the resident. I would even like to say, by extension, the THA half the way, because the THA has pledged their support in assisting us to ensure that what is not in place would be put in place so that persons can move. I am asking, can NIDCO cooperate with us, allow the necessary transition to be made smoothly, allow residents to be treated fairly, and so that we can allow the land to be available for the construction of the airport.
Well, Ms. Hackett, thank you very much for joining us this morning, for taking time out of your morning. I know you're very busy, but thank you very much, and all the best.
Best of luck to you.
As you guys continue to fight for what you guys believe is right. Thank you very much.
Best of luck to you and to all of the residents.
You are most welcome. It has been a pleasure, and thanks for the opportunity for sharing.
No problem.
Thank you, Ms.
No
Hackett.
problem.
Take
We'll
care.
keep in touch.
Yes.
Folks, WESN now breaks for news on the hour.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. THA Chief Secretary says Commissioner of State Lands received instructions to halt evictions. Finance Minister says THA Chief Sec does not hold authority to advise State Lands Commissioner. Second AR-15 rifle seized in less than 12 hours. And internationally, 3 dead after home explodes in Indiana. Now for the details. THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine has indicated that the Commissioner of State Lands received instructions to pause the process of evictions at Crown Point, and therefore the moving and demolition of the residents has been halted. Mr. Augustine revealed that the residents and their attorney received an emergency hearing and they are preparing to go to court to have an injunction. Well, in immediate response, the Finance Minister, Colm Imbert, has taken note of the press release issued by the THA, which gives the impression that instructions have been given by the THA to the Commissioner of State Lands to cease and desist from acquisition proceedings for lands required for the construction of the new terminal building at the ANR Robinson International Airport at Crown Point, Tobago, and that the Commissioner of State Lands has complied with these alleged instructions. The Minister is making it clear that any such impression is inaccurate and misleading. The THA has no such power to instruct the Commissioner of State Lands. Further, the lands in question are urgently required for the construction of the new airport terminal in Tobago, and the state has been in discussions with the occupants of these lands for the last 3 years. The TTPS seized yet another illegal high-powered rifle during a successful intelligence-driven exercise on Wednesday. During an anti-crime exercise in the St. Madeleine district around 5:45 p.m. on Wednesday, officers of the Southern Division proceeded to an abandoned 2-story structure where they conducted a search of the premises. The search resulted in the discovery of the rifle loaded with a magazine containing 12 rounds of 5.56 ammunition. The find follows the seizure of another AR-15 rifle and a quantity of ammunition from the home of an El Dorado couple on Tuesday. Investigations are ongoing. On to international news now. 3 people are dead after a house exploded in southern Indiana, officials said. Dozens of firefighters responded to the scene in Evansville after the blast occurred Wednesday afternoon on the 1000 block of North Weinbach Avenue, officials say. 3 deaths have been reported to the Vanderburgh County Coroner's Office as a result of the explosion, Chief Deputy Coroner David Anson said in a statement. 2 of the victims were in the home that exploded, while the 3rd was not, according to Evansville Fire Chief Mike Connolly. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for watching.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe, cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy your treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
Welcome back. Thank you very much to our head of news, Denise St. Clair. Denise, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're having a wonderful day full of positive, peaceful things. And thank you very much, of course, to our news anchor and junior reporter, Miss Marquise Akers. Peace to you as well. Hope you're having a great day as well.
The irony is there's a piece of news that segues into the question of the day quite interestingly. And I just thought I find it interesting that Tobago autonomy is so important for the political parties involved. But yet this airport exercise really makes it difficult for me to believe that the PNM is serious about Tobago autonomy. And I get it. That's easy for central government. Unfortunately, the PNM's Tobago Council technically did make that promise the last couple of THA elections that they've had. So, but with that said, the airport makes autonomy, the argument of autonomy, difficult. I understand that our guest, she believes and the residents believe that the development is good for the island. I think the THA, the PDP is not against the airport expansion. Technically, however, I kind of am.
Okay, before you give your opinion,
so
please
I want to ask you, the people, at $1.2 billion, with people having to be evicted from their homes, do you think the airport expansion project for the A&R Robinson International Airport is necessary? Because technically speaking, we do have an A&R Robinson International Airport that does take in international flights. What we don't have are people flying in. We don't have it. With the current airport, only a fraction of it is needed to handle the domestic air bridge, which is the bulk of the work that happens on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So what's the point of a terminal that's going to bring it, that can handle 3 million tourists?
Well, I will tell you the point. First of all, folks, the phone lines are now open. You can call in and share with us your thoughts and opinions on the Tobago Airport expansion, as well as what we would have witnessed yesterday into this morning in relation to the eviction of some residents. And furthermore, if you'd like to even comment on the situation that transpired in Grenada on the Harbour Master, well, we want to hear your thoughts as well. I say lock them up and Grenada prosecute them. I have no problem with that.
Also, the protest marches today, if you have anything to say about that, feel free to call in. I find it interesting that it seems that they're marching on behalf of the managers being sacked.
But
that's odd, but I'll get into that later. Back to the
airport. One, I disagree with the airport expansion. I think that you should upgrade the existing airport and the existing airport facilities. The expansion to me does not make sense, and it's a waste of $1.2 billion.
They technically did that not too long ago.
Right, because the domestic, at least the domestic lounge, that has been upgraded fairly well, rather decently, and I must say it's quite nice. I'm not too sure about the international departure lounge or arrival lounge though. But anyway, no, to me, $1.2 billion to spend on an expansion on an airport on a small island, not necessary, not needed. But
let's be clear, capital expenditure, all for it. But just because it's a capital expenditure project doesn't make it automatic.
It's not an investment of which you're going to see much returns of on.
That's the problem.
At this point. But that is the thing. The government, they're touting it as an investment. This is not an investment.
I mean, okay, this is the interesting
part.
part.
Hold on, Sean, before you get caught up, let me finish the point I was making.
Okay.
It's not an investment on their part. It is a way in which they are repaying the Chinese for all the loans that we've taken. Think about it. This $1.2 billion airport being constructed by the Chinese with Chinese labor, design and build, all of this money is not because the government sees it as an investment, This is one project in which you repay China for all the money and all the loans that you actually have taken from them and owe them. And Sean can expand on that through Belt and Road. Come on, we all are aware of this. This is a Chinese project. This is not a project for Tobago.
It was interesting that Chinese laborers were involved in the eviction process. I found that, you're just revealing your hand, you're overplaying your hand just a little too much. Whoever was in charge of that exercise yesterday overplayed your hand way too much. Not a good look, right? We do have a caller from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Well, the answer to that first question that you all got into it, I think it's necessary.
Okay.
And I don't think. My issue is that this is not a project for tomorrow, This is a project the same way that Tobago looking for autonomy. This ties in with that. And if you all have been up the islands in the Caribbean and look at the airport, Tobago needs a better facility.
Well, I agree with you. Certainly better facilities.
Right, and to some extent, we could agree with that. The problem is, do we have the use? Are we going to actually make use of this airport? Do we have the tourists coming in?
But Sean, it's up to them after. Let me give you an example. In St. Vincent, when the Argyle Airport was done, there was a lot of opposition to the Argyle Airport. The airport was done, and then they had things coming after that. The airport was done, now there's a facility to increase flight. Then they had to, hoteliers then were encouraged to improve their room stock.
Well, call
add on and improve. So you have a 2-star, try to make that 3-star. But that is what to be able to do.
Well, but here's the problem, caller. That's generally not how things work out with regards to tourism in Tobago. Because we've had a failure to launch for the last 30 years. And I understand the THA, unfortunately, the PDP's THA does not have the budget currently to make any sort of major moves to rectify the situation of tourism. I believe one person of one of the tourism associations said it might take as much as 600 million just with regards to marketing alone to start.
When the autonomy bill passed and they get you 6.8%, they got enough money.
But caller, overall, go ahead and make your points. Go ahead. We're sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Vincent Gypsy Peters was on a radio news bulletin or a news item. I think it was Monday. And on that issue, because that's with respect to what you said, Keaton, he said that they had met twice with the entity in Tobago that was responsible for the carnival. And the second meeting, they were told in no uncertain terms that they did not require the help of the NCC. He said it. So that thing, what you talk about in the interview, where I think it's something that they really want to do, and let them go ahead and do it. I think it's a learning process for them, and it's a Tobago carnival, and this new administration wants to do something on their own, and I say, all good, man.
Yeah, Kola, I agree with you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kola.
In relation to what you were stating with the airport, I agree with you 100%. They need better facilities. But that is the thing. Upgrade the existing infrastructure, upgrade the existing facilities, and you can have a great international airport for the island of Tobago. But the expansion itself, a 1.2 billion expansion, I don't think you should expand the airport.
I did want to give the caller, because we're disagreeing so heavily, right? Normally, Professor, I know you're on here, but we don't necessarily disagree with the professor like this. My thing is there are more important things for tourism that needs to be done now, that desperately need to be done now. That could use up half that 1.2 billion easy, if not the entire thing. St. Vincent is a different situation to what we are currently.
From what sense, though?
Well, that's a tourism island that probably had their marketing, their awareness, their product, their services better positioned, right? We don't really have much of a tourism product right now. So you're putting an airport to try to revitalize, and we have a track record of, well, we'll do this one big asset, and that's supposed to revitalize the industry. Magdalena, Sandals. Hey, if the government wants to take credit for the oil and gas industry rebounding, just remember, what would have happened if Sandals started construction? That would have been one big white elephant of a whole.
Hold that thought, because we've kept this caller waiting quite a long time now. Good morning, caller from Shigonas. Sorry for the wait.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello, good morning.
There's absolutely no need for any
All right, I think have we lost the caller?
For the simple reason.
Morning?
About 40 years ago, the airport was upgraded in Tobago to take modern flights, and since then, flights, the distance to land and whatnot have not increased.
Yes.
A brand new terminal was built, right? The reason for this airport, I mentioned before last week, had to do with the standards where there was no consultation. And one of the demands that Stuart made was for that airport. There is no justification. Your guest said the law is a cake on land acquisition. That isn't so. A brand new law was made in the 1990s after extensive public consultation, which included included the recommendations of government experts that the people could have commented on that, and all the recommendations were dealt with in detail, and a new law was passed.
When was that, caller? You said 1970?
Mid-90s.
Okay, good.
Mid-90s, I remember the exact date. What caused the problem is a few years after they went and amended the law without consulting anybody, including the government experts. Right? These problems are not new. You remember in the Weimar, when they blocked the road for so much years, and what's going on in the highway. And a big report was done on that with very, very good consultants, which was known as the Armstrong report. Armstrong was a former independent senator. Recommendations have been made to deal with that in detail, but government have done nothing about that. Not only that, this present government put up a next committee to deal with acquisition. We can't hear nothing from them. The relocation, what you must bear in mind is there is no provision in the law for relocation unless you acquire your own property and you need to renovate it or whatnot to make it suitable for the purpose you was using it. This problem of relocation came up when you have what's called the problem in Weimar, when the government experts agreed compensation with the other side, which was done by one of the leading firms of valuers in Trinidad. And when the commissioner of valuations asked for it to put in writing, because these negotiations are carried out, you're just making notes as to the price per square foot for that building and the price for whatnot. The firm said that
caller, could you hurry up and make your point? We have other callers.
Everybody a free house. And that is what causing the problem. Any further questions? I know time went on, but this was important.
No,
yes,
important.
No, it was.
It was very important. But no questions. Thank you very much, Professor.
Sorry, yeah, we have another caller, but thank you for that point. Oh gosh, we lost the other caller. Caller from, I believe, Digger Martin, if you could call back. We're sorry. We didn't necessarily want to cut the professor as he was now, because he only himself now started. But it's an important point. I think, yes, I could see where the professor is right. To Ms. Hackett, the law is archaic, probably because of what happened. And the law is also still 20 years old. They had an amendment. It probably unbalanced the law. And then on top of that, there might be some minor details that kind of make the application of the law a little bit more difficult to apply in 2022 than in 1998 or what have you. So, you know, the passage of time, but also the interference, as well as the fact that NIDCO, as was said, wants to go to the letter of the law. And I don't think, in most cases, if you stick to the letter of the law, it's very easy to be unfair.
If you stuck to the letter of the law, then lawyers won't have a job.
Judges won't have a job either.
None of them would have a job. A whole system wouldn't exist. But we have a call on the line with us from Arima. Good morning, caller.
Morning, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. I would like to speak about the airport. And it isn't necessary that we get the airport because we are trying to woo tourism to Tobago. 80% of the tourism that go to Tobago is from Trinidad.
Yes.
The facility in Tobago is inadequate for thousands of tourism coming from Europe and other places. Now, like Trinidad, where there is 60% of the lands in Trinidad is state land, owned by the Commissioner of State Lands of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Just like that, Tobago has about 70 or 80% of the lands in Tobago are not owned by anybody. The point is that in the early 2000s, Nafiza Mohammed was sent to Tobago as one of the persons to work with the Ministry of to regularize the lands in Tobago. It did not work out because you have to survey all the lands in Tobago. there was always a problem when you have to acquire lands for public purpose in Tobago, in that they are mostly, I don't like to say squatters, but they illegally occupy the land. Now you will pay them for the houses, which is valued for $150,000. But how much are you going to pay them for the lands that they do not have a deed for? The same thing that is happening in Trinidad is happening in Tobago. And we have a problem here with state lands in Trinidad where people who want to do agriculture can't get land because it belongs to the state.
Yeah.
So nobody in Tobago is saying the status of the land. All they are speaking about is that they want $3 million, $4 million for a lot of land in Tobago because the government wants to build an airport. Somebody has to investigate this properly. The state lands, the Commissioner of State Lands should come out and say something about it.
Caller, thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Have a nice day.
Same to you, caller.
Now, the one caveat I would say is Dr. B. Israel did speak to us before about the fact that the problem with deeds is even more extensive than that. They will have situations where it is, for lack of a better way to put it, I'll use a legal term, I'll misuse a legal term in a sense here, common law knowledge, right? There's no, they don't have a deed, but everybody knows that this family has occupied this land for generations upon generations upon generations because the records were lost for whatever reason. Now, how do you separate instances like that where technically they do own the land to squatters? Because unfortunately, the proof is absent in both cases. It's the same, it looks the same.
Mind you, Sean,
But I agree, the lands around the airport, to me, the fault therein lies whoever did not do anything about if they were squatting.
Yes, and in relation to
With regards to
that
that.
is where squatting laws come into place, because they are squatters' rights. But at the same time, the government does have, as the caller mentioned, with respect to state lands, the power and authority as well. So it's going to be interesting what transpires in court. I want to go back to what the caller from Chagonas was stating in relation to why the airport was seen, because of one of the points put forward by Butcher over the sandals thing. Sandals didn't happen. Why is the airport still happening? Maybe the government got into it too fast, too quickly, and they couldn't get out of it. But
right, with the Chinese loan.
But that
Dalton
is
Road.
exactly the point I'm making.
But there's the other fact that, look, I believe it was ultimately Pandey who could claim Piarco, if I'm not mistaken, as his legacy. Of course, Prime Minister Manning has the waterfront. Former Prime Minister Bissessa had, or Prime Minister Bissessa then, you could say, has the Couva Children's Hospital, which I don't necessarily agree as a children's hospital, but it is a hospital and it is a major project, right?
But as much as Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is trying to create this legacy project, because his other legacy was going to be digital transformation. That was going to be.
Well, I don't know about that. Sandals was going to be. It
really was going to be one of his major legacies.
They haven't even started.
But exactly, and he's failed big time in that. The thing is, what he's doing now, what he has done and continues to do, because we're going to go to this caller, unfortunately, it seems as though he's creating a sour taste and a sour reputation amongst Tobagonians.
Might have given us a demand for a new airport, so I get it. But we don't have sandals.
So
and
then,
ironically,
so then what the argument that some of the callers are making is that, okay, if they have the airport, then a sandals could happen. That is what the argument that they're making.
Unfortunately,
that's what the caller from San Fernando was stating.
I understand why they might think that way. The problem is the follow-through and the implementation in Tobago has proven to be historically lacking all the time.
We have a new THU. We have a new THU.
Right, but look, it's about autonomy, right? And the central government is pushing this airport project.
Caller on the line with us from Miaro. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning, good morning.
Morning. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah?
You're live.
We
You're
can
live.
hear you. Yes, I am up in my arrow on the issue of land and deed. On the issue of land and deed. Right? I got a deed here where it's showing one number for the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. The color code of the deed is black. okay, is land, all them land belongs to the Dutch African slaves, okay? Everybody name on it, the government of Trinidad and Tobago know that, and everything is in them hands to announce the lease and the rent up for Trinidad and Tobago. All right? 100 years the land them lease for. From 1915 to 2015. Right? I get the papers in 2018. That is 3 years reprieve. Yeah. I have the document. Yeah.
That's in Tobago or?
No, this is, I think it's Mayaro.
Oh, it's in
For
Mayaro.
Trinidad and Tobago. Because the land belongs to the Dutch African slaves. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Caller, thank you. Thank you. Forgive me. I
wonder if he means the entire
I was
country.
Slightly confused there. The reason why we had to cut you, caller, and we do apologize for that. We don't like to, is because of time. We're more or less
we're more or less running out of that.
I'm only going to request, caller, if next week Monday, if you can just call in to clarify your point, because I wasn't hearing you too clearly, so I didn't fully understand it. But still, thank you for your contribution. Sean,
I actually completely lost track of time. I thought they said that we had another caller.
Yeah, no, that's basically it.
I mean, I get it. I understand why people disagree with me. It's just that with regards to my knowledge of how tourism has unfolded on the island, I don't see it. I could see where we will need, for tourism to flourish, we would need a new airport. The problem is that's not step one, right? I don't think it's effective to have that as step one. That might be step 4, that might be step 5, that might be step 9. That might even be step 3, probably not one of the first 2 things to do. However, at the end of the day, there are other concerns like my friend here has with regards to the Chinese loans and the financing of the airport and who's going to own it.
I honestly think this airport is honestly to pay back the Chinese. I fully believe
the question
that.
is, will it happen to the Sri Lankan port happen to our airport in Tobago?
But overall, I still believe that, I agree that the expansion is not necessary. I think that if you upgrade the existing facilities and infrastructure to a certain standard, that in itself could work, and you probably wouldn't spend $1.2 billion. That's just my opinion. Everybody has differing opinions.
We appreciate your opinions. That's how it goes. We are happy for your dissenting opinions.
So, boy, you like to interrupt, huh?
Yes. No, I need to make sure that
listen, folks.
Disagree with us, it's fine, call in.
You can join us next week, Monday, on the program where my co-host and colleague Sean Michael Small is going to give us his solutions to fix Tobago's tourism. He wasn't aware of that.
He just made that up.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to weigh in on the question of the day, you can check out our Facebook page or social media for the question of the day and give your response, comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us why we're wrong, because I guess everybody disagrees with us on this issue.
But we're going to hear Sean's solutions to tourism in Tobago, because it seems as though he has some very brilliant ideas that the TH and the government haven't been thinking of and putting forward. So we need to hear that.
Step 1,
it's
spend
very
money
important.
on marketing. That's just a given.
But then one might make the argument that this is part of marketing. But hold on, don't get too caught up, because that's all the time
I don't go to a destination because they have a new airport.
Remember, as always, ladies and gentlemen, today is a good day to have a good day.
And a good weekend.
And a great weekend ahead. Get some rest, because maybe next week, as the conversation continues, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Who knows? Let's see what happens this weekend. But for now, have a great one. I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Point. And we'll see you again, fingers crossed, on Monday morning. Bye-bye.
Hopefully me too.
WESN.
The Mary Immaculate Prayer Group and